What's up and welcome in. You found yourselves locked on Bulls. I'm Matt Peck. Up ahead on today's episode on Thanksgiving Eve, we're taking some mailbag questions and topics from you guys. You can hit us up at 331-979-1369. Some topics including, should the Bulls be resting DeMar DeRozan on certain back-to-backs to preserve the veteran's legs for the long haul? Should the impressive start to Ayo Dosunmu's rookie career justify those concerned about the future of Patrick Williams? And should the Bulls get in and see if there's any way they could swing a trade for Kings swingman Harrison Barnes at the deadline? That's all ahead on a fresh Locked On Bulls. Let's go.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily podcast on the Chicago Bulls, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Here are your hosts, Matt Peck and Big Dave Watson.
What's up and welcome into Locked On Bulls, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Matt Peck. You can follow me on Twitter at Bulls_Peck. You can follow us here at Locked On Bulls at Locked On Bulls. Email us lockedonbulls@gmail.com and hit us up on that text and voicemail line 331-979-1369. Today's episode is brought to you in part by TrueBill. TrueBill is the new app that saves you money by helping you identify and stop paying for the subscriptions you don't want or need, and can even negotiate better deals on those you want to keep. TrueBill. Well, happy Thanksgiving Eve, everybody. We were going to have a interview for you for today's episode, but something came up. Big Dave was not available today, and so we wanted to save that interview for a time when Big Dave and I could both be there asking those questions together. So hopefully we can get that guest back on the schedule at some point in one of next week's episodes. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, I figured I would spend some time talking about some of the things in our inbox recently, some interesting questions, trade hypotheticals, long-term season strategy and things like that. Before that, though, as we are here about midday on Wednesday, the Bulls playing the Rockets down to Houston tonight. A few updates on those two key players the Bulls have been missing recently. Their starting center, Nikola Vucevic, and Alex Caruso, who sat out that Pacers game with his wrist injury. So this was from Joe Cowley, who is down in Houston covering the team and was at shoot-around earlier today, who said Vooch went through the shoot-around, had a meeting with Billy Donovan and medical staff on the court, and came away with the news he wanted. And that news is Vooch will play tonight. Limited minutes, but he will play. Cowley saying that Vooch wants to give it a run since he's been cleared. Said it's been tough to sit and miss this amount of time, as Vooch missed the entirety of that West Coast trip and their back-to-back home games out with the COVID-19 health and safety protocols. Meanwhile, Alex Caruso has a brace on his wrist that Cowley saw at morning shoot-around, but is also getting up shots ahead of the game against the Rockets tonight. Caruso, at the moment, is considered a game-time decision. Caruso did not speak with the media after the morning shoot-around, so he is a legitimate wait-and-see game-time decision. So, some good news and some so-so news there. Obviously, getting Vooch back in this lineup will be a huge help. I mean, you don't have to start Tony Bradley anymore. Even if it's limited minutes, you assume that Billy's going to go back to starting Vooch, even if he's only going to play, 15, 20, 25 minutes max tonight. You could still get him back in that starting lineup and ask less of your backup center, Tony Bradley. You can also look forward to Vooch's presence on the floor alleviating some of that pressure for offensive creation from Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. We saw in certain ways that opponents' defenses keying in on them without Vooch on the floor really kind of bogged down the Bulls' half-court offense in Vooch's absence. So an amazing get to have Vooch back in the lineup. Great news that he is back and not just tonight, but for the foreseeable future. It seems as though Vooch has made his way through this positive COVID-19 situation that he had to deal with. And actually, as this I am recording here, this just came across my Twitter feed. This is from Rob Schaefer of NBC Sports Chicago. What's up, Rob? Who said the Bulls list Vooch and Alex Caruso as available versus the Rockets tonight. So, sounds like after shoot around, they already gave Vooch the green light, but it was a game time decision for Caruso, and boom, there we are. I just said game time decision. We're still 6 or 7 hours away from tip off, but there it is. Caruso available. Maybe not necessarily a guarantee that he will see minutes, but he will dress. He will be listed as available tonight. That is great news. In addition to getting Vooch back, you get back your, along with Lonzo, your team's best point of attack defender, and Alex Caruso, a guy who has provided so much for this Bulls team through their first 15 or so games of the season. And, we'll see if he is still wearing that brace on his wrist. If he is, in the rotation tonight and playing, much like we have seen Zach LaVine wearing a brace on that left thumb and left wrist, playing through that partially torn ligament in his non-shooting hand. So might be all kinds of casts and braces and whatnot for this Bulls team tonight down in Houston. But the fact that it was maybe just the one game absence required for Caruso to rest that wrist, and we never really heard any conclusive results of that MRI that we did hear that he was scheduled to have. But if it was just a one game absence and a brace, but nothing more than that, and he's already marked as available again after missing just one game, you have to assume that MRI brought back nothing problematic and was officially a good MRI result and cleared Caruso to play. So good news across the board there, as the Bulls will, other than Patrick Williams, appear to have their full slate of players available as they try and bounce back from that ugly win against the Pacers by beating this Rockets team that is one win on the season. So good news across the board there. Like I said, wanted to get into some mailbag topics, including Vooch's return, as we were just speaking of, and what that might mean for Coby White based on some of the things we saw last season. So we'll touch on that and a bunch of other subjects. Before we do that, though, I mentioned at the top of the show, today's episode is brought to you by TrueBill. Do you know why free trials renew without your consent? Well, it's because it's a business scam out to get you. Don't let greedy corporations pocket your money. Download TrueBill to take control of your subscriptions. TrueBill is the new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you don't need, want, or simply forgot about. On average, people save up to $720 a year with TrueBill. That's a lot of money. Because companies make subscriptions hard to cancel, TrueBill makes it incredibly simple. Just link your accounts and TrueBill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in one tap. And your TrueBill concierge is there when you need them to cancel unwanted subscriptions so you don't have to. TrueBill has over 2 million users and helps save them over $100 million. Wow. So don't fall for subscription scams. Start canceling today at TrueBill.com/LockedOnNBA. Go right now. That's TrueBill.com/LockedOnNBA. It could save you thousands a year. TrueBill.com/LockedOnNBA. Today's episode is also brought to you by those delicious protein bars that taste like candy bars. That's right, Built Bar. Thanksgiving is tomorrow. All the good foods and treats and eats, plenty of them. But maybe you want a yummy dessert, but one that isn't so full of calories and sugar. It's the perfect time for Built Bars, y'all. Built Bar is the new holiday dessert. Feast on something delicious and feel good about it. One slice of pie has upwards of 300 calories for a single slice of pie, and that's on the low end, not even the more unhealthy kinds of pie on that Thanksgiving dessert table. Most Built Bars, however, are only 130 calories. Just 4 grams of sugar, plenty of protein. So replace that coconut cream pie with a coconut Built Bar, or go for a raspberry Built Bar instead of a raspberry pie. Lots of good flavors to replace any pie this holiday season. It's a great option for when you're hungry. Thanksgiving isn't soon enough. You're waiting around and you still have a few hours before that big Thanksgiving meal. Grab yourself a Built Bar. Share with your family too. Plus, there's new surprises all month with limited time flavors arriving at Built.com regularly. So check the site often and see what those flavors are. That new vanilla cream flavor, limited time flavor, is still available on the website, as is that mystery bar we told you about a few weeks ago, which, by the way, they have revealed the answer. The mystery Built Bar, fruity cereal. That's right. If you're a fan of those fruity cereals, those delicious cereals you remember eating when you were a kid in the morning before school, Built Bar has a flavor that tastes exactly like that. That was the mystery flavor. That's available too right now at Built.com. So go to Built.com and use promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. Again, that's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, y'all, let's dive into this mailbag. I mentioned there was a question about Coby White here. Let's see if I can find it. There it is. 1 second. The 404 text saying, looking forward to seeing Coby play with Vooch. If anyone can help Coby start to feel comfortable, it's him. They had some good chemistry starting to cook up last year in Zach's absence. That's a good point. I think all of us remembered that whereas the arrival of Vooch didn't necessarily result in the quick turnaround and the Bulls making at least the play-in tournament at the end of last season like we had hoped, and obviously Zach's absence had a lot to do with that when Zach was in health and safety protocols. One of the silver linings of the end of a disappointing season last year was some of that chemistry we started to see develop between Coby White and Vooch, our new starting center. Because a lot of times when we were wondering ourselves, can Coby White be a point guard? Can he be a starting point guard? Does he have those playmaking abilities to be more than just an off-ball scoring threat in the NBA? It was hard to know the answer to that question when he did not have a weapon like Vooch to play with. Playing two-man game, running some pick and roll stuff, and having a reliable scoring option at that center position. And, no harsh offense intended to Wendell Carter Jr., but, and maybe he turns things around in Orlando. It seems like he's had an okay, if not slightly above average start to the season based on Wendell's expectations, but he was clearly not comfortable and not confident on the offensive end when he was the Bulls starting center. And Coby White, who knows how many more assists he could have had on the season, how many more assists he could have averaged per game if he had Vooch as his starting center all season long. And you did see some of that chemistry develop between Coby and Vooch last season. And I think it helped Coby's confidence to say, hey, here's somebody that I can play some two-man stuff with and have confidence that if I get him the ball on the floor where he wants it, he can score. That is a key to me. Coby's confidence. Because as he has come back from this offseason shoulder surgery and missing the first dozen or so games of the season, a lot of Bulls fans were quick. And when I say quick, I mean like 2 games in a total of 20 minutes spanning those 2 games to say, Coby doesn't have it. Was, looking forward to getting him back to see what he could do. Doesn't have it. Let's trade him today. Let's trade him tomorrow. Big Dave and I saying, guys, pump the brakes. Clearly not the same player that we saw through his first 2 NBA seasons and is trying to get himself back. We are also relearning some of the things that are the shortcomings of Coby's game. He's gotten blocked at the rim a lot already in his first handful of games back. Never been great finishing at the rim. So that's still a weakness that's there with his game. But he hasn't played with Vooch yet since he's come back from his injury. Vooch has been out since Coby came back in. So with Vooch now back in the lineup, will we start to see a continuation of that chemistry that Coby and Vooch developed towards the tail end of last season? And can that help the overall confidence and competence in Coby White's game as an integral piece of Billy Donovan's rotation moving forward? That's going to be a big key question to see whether or not Coby White sticks for this entire season in Donovan's rotation and with this team moving forward. But obviously, yes, Vooch being there on the floor as a safety net for Coby and everybody else who's handling that ball and looking for ways to score is going to be a positive. And hopefully we see more of that chemistry develop between Vooch and Coby in this next handful of games. Thanks for the text. Thanks for checking in. Speaking of Bulls young players, we've got an email here from Bam Douglas in Norfolk, England, who is the latest one to talk to us and wonder about Patrick Williams. The Patrick Williams conundrum is the subject line of this email sent to us from Bam, who said, "Hey guys, writing this email off the back of the W against the Nuggets and Io's performance. I know it's been covered before, but it feels like it's worth a second look. Are the Bulls actually a better team without Patrick Williams? The Bulls coaching staff and players, to their credit, have devoted a lot of time in real game situations trying to get the paw to switch on and be that player that we all know he has the potential to be. Io is owning his rookie season right now, and that's all down to his attitude. At the end of the day, you can coach tactics and shot mechanics. You can't coach attitude. For me, this injury break will be a last chance saloon for Williams. He either comes out fighting post injury or we trade him and don't relive the whole Lowry what could have been scenario all over again. Harsh, maybe, but Williams was showing pre injury a worrying amount of traits that he'll forever be one of those why didn't he have a bigger, better career kind of players. Your thoughts, yours, guillotine in hand, Bam. Thanks for checking in, Bam. A well laid out email. And I certainly understand the points you're making. But let me say this. Let me say this again to you and to anybody out there who is wondering, is this team better without Patrick Williams? No. Let me say this to you and anybody out there who's wondering, should the Bulls trade Patrick Williams? No. Look, I understand that you want to make the comparison to, well, look how confident Io plays. And why didn't we ever see that version of Patrick Williams? Why isn't it that P-Dub just came into the league and just started owning the way that Io is owning? First off, I'm glad you're happy and excited about Io. And Io has been a perhaps surprisingly important part of Billy Donovan's rotation out of the gate his rookie season. But Io's not owning anything. That's an exaggeration, and it is exaggeration you're using to make Patrick Williams look worse. So let's start there. Is it true that your point about attitude is Io good, Patrick Williams bad? No, I think it's not as simple as that. There's a lot of different elements that go into what you might call attitude. Confidence is a different word. Maybe what I will grant you is that as a rookie, Io DeSumo shows more confidence, more fearlessness than what we saw Patrick Williams play with in his rookie season last year. I think that's valid to say. I think it's a valid argument. Just based on the eye test, Io appears to play with more confidence on a nightly basis than Patrick Williams. However, their scenarios are different in a lot of ways, and I think it goes a long way to explain why that is. First of all, the team that Patrick Williams played with for the large part of his rookie season, not good, not talented, not deep, not fun. It was the first year. Like, yeah, they got rid of, Coach What's-His-Face that thankfully Patrick never had to play for. He got to come in and play his rookie season under Billy Donovan. That's great. But the Bulls were a team with a new front office, a new coach trying to evaluate and figure out what the heck they had. And while they were doing that, they were not winning a lot of games, understandably so. So that's not the same scenario that Io DeSumo is in. Io DeSumo came in and, to his credit, earned a spot in Donovan's rotation and did so on a team with a lot more talent on it than the team that Patrick Williams was an integral part of last season. The Bulls, and Billy Donovan admitted as much, put a lot on Patrick Williams' shoulders last season. And guess what? A lot of that was on the defensive end, where they thought that Patrick Williams was an NBA-ready player. That's true. He was guarding our opponent's best scorer pretty much every night. So, yeah, a lot of nights that meant that the Bulls, fans watching were underwhelmed because he only took 6 shots or he only scored 4 points. A 19-year-old rookie whose first and primary role every night was on the defensive end and you're worried about him being a bust, or you say he doesn't have the right attitude because he's not showing, I don't know, some layer of confidence that Io is showing in his rookie year, you're comparing apples and oranges. Let's also remember that despite Io being a rookie and Patrick Williams being a vet coming into this season, his second season, Io was a multi-year collegiate player. P-Dub was one and done. Io DeSumo, despite being a rookie, is like 2 years older than Patrick Williams. So all these Bulls fans who are just so quick to write off P-Dub, and I'm not saying that this emailer is writing him off completely. They did have that line at the end of the email saying, like, when he comes back from this injury, it's now or never to show us. Okay, but what is now in the now or never? Does he have to, if it's he's healed and comes back and joins the lineup for a Bulls playoff run, but doesn't like wow you with an amazing, array of offensive weaponry that we didn't see as a rookie? If he doesn't do that, is it then never because not now? For a kid who by that time, mind you, will still only be 20 years old? The immediacy and the reactionary BS from some of the Bulls fans, I swear, drives me crazy. There are lots of other questions around Patrick Williams and his long-term future compared to what the Bulls' targets are now and in the short term when it comes to winning, contending for championships. If the right trade came along that took the Bulls from, hey, we might be a sneaky, hard out in the East, to we're expecting a conference finals trip, maybe the finals. Patrick Williams being included as a part of a trade like that, I could make my peace with that if it meant the Bulls challenging for championships now and in the short-term future. Sure. But that's not the same thing as saying, well, look at Io. So why isn't Patrick Williams that? And justifying that to be like, well, now he's injured, and if he doesn't show me a whole lot of stuff when he comes back from this injury right away, then he's a bust. What could have been player. A 20-year-old who had a really unfortunate injury at the start of his second NBA season. Give me a break. Appreciate the email. And I understand some of the points you're making. I just don't agree with them. And I hope why I just laid it out makes sense to you too. Feel free to email me again. Email us again with a retaliation of the points that I just laid out for why I think you're concerning yourself with things that you shouldn't be concerned about. Short and simple answer to your original question. Are the Bulls better without Patrick Williams? No. No, we're not. All right. A couple more topics I want to get to that I thought were interesting, including resting DeMar, ? We will do that in just a second. First, though, it's Thanksgiving, and we all know what that means. Football. And nothing goes better with football than turkey and betting. Ain't America grand? BetOnline has you covered all holiday season. More props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this Thanksgiving. Head to their new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus with promo code LOCKEDON. And it's not just football. BetOnline has pro and college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, even your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait. Take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. Maybe you want to put a little, parlay on all of the NFL games that we have on deck for tomorrow. Maybe you want to put a same game parlay in to this Bears-Lions backup quarterback battle, because that might be the best way to make that game actually entertaining. Put a few bets on it, because otherwise it's not like we're going to be enjoying that Bears-Lions game for the quality of the football being played. So bet on it. Duh. And there's one place to do that. It's BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports. BetOnline, we're stuffed with deals this Thanksgiving. And again, don't forget that promo code LOCKED ON for your 50% welcome bonus. All right, moving on. This next text comes to us from the 773, who said, "Hey guys, big fan of the pod. I got to say, y'all are even more enjoyable to listen to when the Bulls are winning." Gee, what a surprise. Appreciate that. Question: how do you feel about the Bulls letting guys? How do you feel about let? Ugh, let me start over. How do you guys feel about the Bulls letting DeRozan rest against bottom tier teams like Rockets, Magic, Pistons, etc.? He's up in age, so having him as rested as possible for a playoff push would be critical. Plus, I'd love to see Zach being able to lead the Bulls to victories even without DeRozan by his side. As the face of this team, I want to see Zach be more of a leader. I love Zach, but it aggravates me when I see him give up on plays or make costly mistakes because of his frustration with a no call. I hope with time he learns more discipline and leadership to set good examples for the rest of the team. Thanks for texting in. Interesting question here. Before we get to the DeRozan thing, let me just address what you said about Zach just now. I think, I think you're missing the forest for the trees. Look, will I acknowledge that what you're saying about occasionally Zach getting frustrated and that maybe compounding upon itself to mistakes that Zach makes or a lack of effort that Zach makes? Yeah, Dave and I talked about that very trait of Zach's on a recent episode. When Zach was getting frustrated by the officiating, which he has been doing a lot so far this season, and it caused him to not get back on defense. And their opponents got an easy 5-on-4 bucket in transition. We know that about Zach. The thing about like resting DeRozan so that Zach can lead and close games by himself and that kind of thing that you're talking about, no. You know why the answer is no? Because that's why you got DeMar, to help Zach close games. And look, Big David, I mentioned this on a recent episode too. Zach and DeMar are, I mean, I didn't check the stat this morning, but the last time I checked, we're leading the NBA in spots 1 and 2 in fourth quarter scoring. You know what's better than having one player in the NBA's top 5 in fourth quarter scoring? Having 2 players on your team in top 5 in NBA in fourth quarter scoring. Zach doing everything in fourth quarters, having to do everything by himself in fourth quarters, is a huge reason why this Bulls team wasn't winning for the past 2 years, that Zach was turning himself into an all-star caliber player. He needed help. DeMar is that help. So look, I don't think that Zach LaVine has a leadership problem. I do acknowledge your point that sometimes if Zach gets frustrated as the leader of the team, those habits are, you know, things that are perhaps you risk mirroring in the guys who are looking to Zach to lead by example. Yes. You know, with broad sweeping brushes, yes, that is a valid argument you can make. Do I think it's a problem right now and will be a bigger problem going forward? No, I don't. Hopefully, Zach starts to get a little bit more respect from the officials as the season progresses, as he continues to rack up impressive night after impressive night. And NBA refs remember that he is a GD all-star, for crying out loud, and deserves way more fouls than he's getting. So again, I'm giving Zach a big partial pass on the way he's been frustrated by the refs so far, because he deserves to be frustrated by this officiating. But in the meantime, I don't think it reflects poorly on him. Sometimes it frustrates you to watch and say, Zach, get back on defense. I know you're pissed about that no call, but get back on defense. But the stuff about Zach closing games without DeMar, no. That's why DeMar is here. You're overcomplicating this. You're thinking too much. Now, what about should the Bulls rest DeMar in certain games? DNP old, as Pop used to do for Tim Duncan at the end of his career with the Spurs. Yeah, I'd be okay with that. Resting DeMar as the season progresses, as you get into February, March, April, and the Bulls are on some back-to-backs, either front or back end of the back-to-back. You know, if one of those teams in a back-to-back is a cupcake and one of them is, you know, an East juggernaut who you're maybe vying for seeding with, yeah, See if you can get that other win while resting DeMar's legs. And look, it's not like DeMar is ancient, but we have seen NBA coaches and training staffs and organizations embrace resting key veteran players over the last number of seasons. And it doesn't matter if they're in their prime, 29, or a vet who's pushing their mid to late 30s. Lots of guys are doing DNP rest. It's the new way of the league. DeMar has been playing outstanding, but he's logged a lot of minutes already. You could tell in that Pacers game, the second night of that back-to-back after the long road trip. I mean, and credit to DeMar, his mid-range buckets, his half-court game was the one thing that kept the Bulls in that game for as long as they did, which was, I don't know, a quarter and a half, 18 minutes or so. But you could tell that DeMar was gassed in that game. So, yes, that part of your question, should the Bulls consider resting DeMar on certain back-to-backs against certain opponents where you think we could probably get a W here without DeMar's services? Yes. See what happens. If, it could be, and this kind of goes to your other point that you were making. Well, like, Zach, can he close without DeMar? Well, if what you want is to see DeMar get some DNPs for rest, then we'll see. We'll see what this team looks like trying to close games without DeMar. Because, as I said, one of the top fourth quarter scorers in the NBA. That is a valuable piece to have out there in the fourth quarter, even if he is old. All right. Thanks for checking in. We got one more to get to really quickly, or I guess as quickly as possible, because this is a humdinger. The 312 texting in to say, with the Kings season being a disaster, that's an understatement. Once again, if they blow it up, what could we trade for Harrison Barnes? You guys might laugh at me. My trade idea of TBJ and maybe Portland's first round pick for him. Other Bulls fans like Doug, Fred, Mark are saying they would give up both Coby and Pat for Harrison Barnes. I wouldn't give up Pat, but I think Barnes would be nice on this Bulls team. And that is from the 312. Thanks for texting in. Very interesting. So, I've started to see a lot of Harrison Barnes talk around Bulls Twitter over the last couple of weeks. As we are watching and we're like, hey, we're good. We're double the amount of wins as losses good. We might be looking at a top 4 seed in the East if we can keep this up all season. What is a piece that we need to go from good to potentially great and making a deep playoff run? A lot of people looking at the front court, right? What kind of depth do we have behind Vooch? A lot of people looked at 4 or 5 games of Bradley getting minutes and said, oh, dear God, we need that front court piece. Bulls fans are like, hey, sign DeMarcus Cousins or sign this guy or sign that guy. But there's also a substantial amount of you out there who are saying, what about Barnes? And look, Barnes is having statistically one of, if not the most impressive seasons so far of his career, averaging almost 20 points per game. I think 19 and a half. Hold on, I got his stats pulled out here. Yes, 19.3, 7.5 rebounds per game. He's shooting pretty efficiently, 47.5% from the field. He's shooting 40% from downtown on 5 attempts a game. He's even getting to the free throw line, a career high, a noticeable career high, 6.4 free throw attempts per game for Barnes, and he's knocking those down at an 86% clip. And because of that, the length he plays with, the switchability that he plays with, the way that we saw him defend as a crucial piece of that 2015 title team with the Warriors, we know that he would fit seamlessly into Billy Donovan's defensive system. I mean, if you have watched Barnes' career and you see and you recognize what Billy Donovan is doing on defense with this new roster, Harrison Barnes, that is a square peg in a square hole. That is a great fit. It all comes down to what our texter was wondering about. What's the price? What is the price for Harrison Barnes? And by price, I mean what will it cost to get him in a trade? Speaking of price quickly, for the record, Barnes is on the second to last year of the deal that he signed with the Kings after getting traded there. $20.2 million this season, de-escalating contract, final year of his contract next year, making $18.3 million, unrestricted free agent in 2023. So he's got this season and next season left on his contract. What can the Bulls offer? Does Troy Brown Jr. and the Portland pick get it done? I don't think so. Patrick Williams and Coby White, it's a lot to give up for Barnes. But as I was just saying, responding to that emailer's question about Patrick Williams, if the right trade comes along, you got to consider it. If it's a trade that makes you a title contender, you must consider it. Is Patrick and Coby a hefty price to pay? Yeah. The Bulls also don't really have a lot of other options as far as draft capital if they wanted to make an offer that the Kings would be enticed by. Because you got one of two out of the way in the Vooch trade. Orlando took the Bulls pick in the 2021 draft. So now you got 2023 going to Orlando. You still got the 2025 going to San Antonio for the sign and trade with DeMar. So you can't really trade another of your own first round picks until 2027 at this point. The Kings want to wait until 2027 to get some kind of return for Harrison Barnes. My guess is no. And it's weird. Like, you're right. The Kings are a dumpster fire right now. Just, fired their coach, Luke Walton, a few days ago. Seemed like they were maybe a team that was starting to figure things out with the way that De'Aaron Fox was playing, and Buddy Hield played well. And they got Halliburton last year, which was, I think, an incredible value where they drafted him, a guy that I think a lot of Bulls fans would have been okay with the Bulls drafting, but they can't win. They can't figure out how to win. And here's Barnes, this aging vet who is, a huge part of what the Kings are doing offensively this season, having a great year. And he might be looking at the Kings, ownership and front office, and they might be looking at him saying it might be time for a mutual separation here. Because if this is what you're doing, firing your coach, trying to figure out, what do we do with Fox, and, all these pieces, are we trying to win or do we go back to tanking? The Kings are a mess. And maybe it's a mess that Barnes wants to get out of. So I would not be surprised to see Barnes traded before this season's trade deadline. The biggest question, how many teams, if the Bulls are interested, how many teams are you competing against to make your offer? Because we know, because of Vooch, because of DeRozan, the money you gave to Caruso, the sign and trade with Lonzo, which also, another wrinkle there, the Bulls might be, robbed. I don't know if you want to call it robbed, but they might be relieved of yet another draft pick if we ever get the results of this tampering investigation for the Lonzo sign and trade. The Bulls, I see the Bulls having a hard time coming up with the best offer to give to Sacramento for Harrison Barnes. Because this is an NBA season where things appear to be wide the heck open in both conferences. The Lakers are kind of a mess without LeBron, and even kind of still a mess with LeBron. And we don't know if he's going to be healthy for the rest of the season or if he's going to miss more time. The Nets certainly don't look like world beaters without Kyrie. Harden maybe kind of getting his stuff together, but they don't look invincible. The Bucks have had a tough start to their year. So, like, anybody above 500 right now in the NBA is like, we could make a swing at this. We could make a playoff run. Wide open in a way that I think it really hasn't been in a long time. You know what that means? That means there are a lot of teams that are going to be calling Sacramento over the next couple of months to say, hey, Harrison Barnes, what's the deal? What do you want? What can we give you? What can we offer? And based on where the Bulls are as far as what assets do they have, what can they dangle, I see them getting outbid. But that certainly doesn't mean I wouldn't like to see them try, because for a lot of reasons, Harrison Barnes would fit very well with this Bulls squad, and I think make them better. So that's that. Thanks everybody for checking in. If you want to be a part of the show for these mailbag episodes, you can hit us up on that text and voicemail line 331-979-1369 or email us lockedonbulls@gmail.com. You can also hit us up on Twitter. I'm at Bulls_Peck. We are at Locked on Bulls. So yeah, like I said, sort of a last second unavailability for Big Dave today. Otherwise, we would have had the guest for you. We'll try and have that guest for you next week. But keep an eye out for Friday when we'll be dropping a crossover episode between me and the Locked On Heat guys to get you all ready for that big Bulls Heat game that's happening this Thanksgiving weekend. So keep an eye out for that. I'll try and remember to put it in our feeds as well, but definitely it'll be in the Locked On Heat feed. So check that out on Friday when you're eating those Thanksgiving leftovers. For my partner, Big Dave, Matt saying, have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Be safe, be happy, enjoy your family, or good luck with your family if you're dreading it. I know what that's like. Just kidding. Can't wait for Thanksgiving with the folks and the sibling. It's going to be great. See Red be good. Let's hope we get some Bulls W's to talk about, and we'll be back next week. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.